Okay, good morning and welcome to the State Ethics Commission. Let's see, today is September the 18th and the time is 9:01. First order of business is a couple of administrative announcements. If you have a cell phone, please turn it off. And I guess most of you are on WebEx, so please raise your hand so I can see you, so I can recognize you. And Robert may help me in regards to if I miss a hand so that you may speak. First off, let's have a roll call, and if you are alone, please indicate.
All right, starting recognizing that Chair Fong is in the public hearing room, starting with Vice Chair Beverly Tobias.
For the
Well,
record, we see her on the screen, but we can't hear her or see her. We see her name on the screen.
we'll circle back. Commissioner Hong,
President alone.
Commissioner Thielen.
I'm present and alone with
Thank
my
you.
dog.
Thank you. Turning to staff, Patrick,
President alone.
Jennifer,
Present and alone.
Benita,
Present and alone.
Key,
Present and alone.
Nancy,
Present and alone.
Jody,
Present and alone.
Jared,
Present and alone.
Barbara.
Present and alone.
Also recognizing that I am present in my office and alone. I see Vice Chair Tobias is now on. Do you want to announce yourself?
I am present and alone.
Thank you. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe we have one person from the audience, and I have to read this. For any members of the public who may be joining us remotely, if the Commission's video conference connection is lost during the meeting, we will recess the meeting and reconvene after connection is restored. Please check the Commission's website, www.ethics.hawaii.gov, for information about reconnecting to the meeting. If the meeting is continued to a later date or terminated, information about this will be posted on our website. I see we have one person who is not with the Commission. Would she like to introduce herself? I think it's the Deputy Attorney General.
So, Chair, that's our Deputy Attorney General, Candace Park.
Oh, okay. Okay, let's get started. First of all, I wish all of you a happy Moon Festival. And of course, all you Chinese understand what the Moon Festival is all about. I think I heard different stories. One about the rabbit and the moon. No, that's not the one. I think it's the right one. It's supposed to be a reunion of the family. And last night, it's supposed to have been a full moon. I don't know. I didn't go out and look. So anyway, happy Moon Festival. Okay. First order of business, status of a new commission announcement. Robert, you have some good news for us.
Thank you, Chair. Pleased to announce that we have a full commission. Rod Becker has been a part. So again, for those of you who are not familiar, the way commissioners are appointed to the Ethics Commission is the Judicial Council puts out an advertisement, interviews candidates, selects two nominees that are given to the governor, and the governor selects. And so as of Monday, Rod Becker was confirmed or was appointed by the governor. He is unable to join us today, although he's very pleased to be a part of the commission. He's currently at a conference in Arizona, but hopefully he'll be joining us next month and coming on full speed.
Thank you very much. And as I had mentioned in our press release, I'm so happy now that we have a full contingency and with a very capable and actually knowledgeable individual to help us enforce the ethics laws of the state. On the second part of the agenda, consideration and approval of minutes of August 21st. Any corrections on those minutes? If not, I entertain a motion that we approve the minutes of August 21st, 2024.
I so move.
Moved by
Second.
Commissioner Thielen,
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Tobias. Discussion? Not all in favor? I guess do we need a roll call vote, Robert?
We do for the minutes.
Okay, go ahead.
Starting with Vice Chair Tobias.
Aye.
Commissioner Hong.
Aye.
Commissioner Thielen.
Aye.
Chair.
Chair votes aye, no. Opposition, motion's carried. Next, Director's Report, Training and Education. It's
If I can ask Benita to take that.
Good morning, Commissioners. In your board materials, we have a preview of the quarterly report that I'll be presenting next month. We currently have the board information that we've been tracking based on our board filing information and data. I am compiling the agency information and we'll have the full report next month as part of the quarterly report. But to kind of preview the board, I'm happy to report that, the numbers are looking excellent. Currently, we have 95% completion rate for all the public board filers, meaning the 17 major boards. And then for the confidential boards, we have 87% completion rate. So overall aggregate that we're looking at right now is about 88% of the 851 board members that we work with. So in terms of the breakdown from our dashboard, for public boards, all the boards are really doing really well, 100%, including ours. There are a few boards that we'll be, working with to kind of get their numbers up, HCDA and Hawaiian Homes Commission, but they're not that far off. Some of them may be initial board members that are just coming on board. So, we want to work with those individuals to get them all set up. For the confidential boards, there's a long list of 100%. So that's excellent. I think in response to Commissioner Hong's suggestion, we'll be sending out, letters or some sort of acknowledgement to kind of, acknowledge their hard work in getting 100% compliance. In terms of just the overall view, the majority, this is a perspective of the, kind of the aggregate of all the boards. So we have about 103 boards that we track. So there's a lot of boards that we work with, but about, 3/4 of the boards are doing really well. Another quarter of the boards, we're going to kind of work with them to kind of drive their numbers up. And there's only really 2 boards that are kind of underperforming. But if you look at the list of who's kind of lower end spectrum, a lot of those boards either have staffing issues for their board administration. There's a lot of turnovers. There's also the one board that is fairly just getting started off the ground, the Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, and Transgender Commission that was recently established. I think their nominations were just submitted this year. So those people are really just getting off the ground. So we're working with that board to just get them kind of situated. So, these are the boards that we're going to be targeting and doing more outreach just to kind of help assist them in getting more higher levels of compliance. But overall, we've hit the 85% goal for at least on the boards. For the agency sides, I'm pretty optimistic. We, for most of the agencies, they already self-reported. We're just waiting for a number of the larger boards that, have more numbers to work with and manage, but they all have LMS systems, which is excellent for us. So we'll be coordinating with them to get their data and we report next month.
Well,
If there are any questions, let me know.
Well, first of all, congratulations. Great job. Yeah, that's way more than 85 that I had anticipated. It tells me that I guess these boards and commissioners, they're take their job seriously, and I think they really want to follow the rules. I'm looking forward to seeing what the state employees who are getting paid are going to how they're going to respond. But congratulations, great job. Comments by the commissioners or questions?
Yeah, I'd like to thank Bonita for and for Ms. Chang for her revision of the dashboard. It's well put together, and it's a lot easier to interpret than just raw data.
Good, thanks.
And then
Again,
in
thank
terms
you,
of
Bonita.
oh, thank you. Yeah. If you want to add additional point, the besides the tracking, the next 3 months, I'll be focusing on content and the curriculum. We'll be updating all the materials, including the slide decks, the online modules, and all the guides to reflect changes in the law. That way we keep the information current. So we'll be working on really the content and substantive materials along with just work generally the general administration of the training. So I appreciate all the commissioners' input, suggestions. Just kind of helping us grow the training compliance aspects.
Well, thank you very much. I guess I'm being a little optimistic, but does that mean that we will probably have very, very, very few cases involving boards and commissions? That's a rhetorical question. Okay, moving right along. Next, Robert.
If we could shift to guidance and assignment statistics, Key, if you could take that on.
Sure. So basically, last month, we had 27 complaints received, 17 closed. We're still on track for the year, though, at 270 open and 270 closed. I think last month, basically because of the timing of some of the cases, some of them didn't get closed by the end of the month. So I would anticipate an uptick for next month. And I know we have some cases that are already closed. So those will be on next month's report. But I think we are continuing to efficiently prosecute the cases.
Very good. Questions by the commissioners, comments? Okay, if none, next.
So shifting briefly to miscellaneous office projects and updates, just as a general update, I really want to recognize Patrick for working exceptionally hard to update the office's internal file and case management software system. We are moving off of a system that is probably at least 10, if not 12 years now out of date, and moving to a much more modern, secure, and remote accessible system. And so we hope to go live with that, basically at the end of the month. We've been actively testing it, and, it should allow us to, be able to sort of work everywhere, but keep system data information secure. It should allow us to have better tracking and be able to potentially provide more reports sort of as a general matter, what happens with advice and complaints that are coming in and sort of the speed and efficiency at which we are addressing them. So really looking forward to having that system go live. And again, a lot of credit to, all of the staff, but, Patrick in particular for helping shepherd that through. In addition, I want to remind the commission that I will not be present at the meeting next October. But, I feel pretty confident that we will proceed admirably, if not maybe better, with some of the other staff running or helping assist run the meeting through. Okay.
Okay, questions, comments, commissioners? Okay, moving along. Item number 4, media.
Commissioners, this is a standing agenda item. Looking just briefly at some of the alerts that we received of matters involving either ethics or the Ethics Commission. We have had a number of candidate questionnaires that have referenced ethics and their sort of intent, what to do with ethics. We did have our last enforcement case, which settled involving a Moanalua teacher with some media reports covering it. And then sort of around the same time as the last commission meeting, there's been some news and media about the Maui Board of Ethics doing an advisory opinion involving a city employee who is managing nonprofit grants and sort of the potential conflict of interest there.
Okay, questions, comments, commissioners?
Chair.
Commissioner Thie.
Yeah, I participated in a pay-to-play forum up at University of Hawaii, and it was held by a part of that book and music event, the 2-day event this last weekend. And I participated in that panel with Allie Silbert and Randy Roth. And it was moderated by Blaise Lavelle of Civil Beat. It was really a good panel and very enjoyable.
Good. Did you have anything you wanted to share with in particular that may help us?
More, well, I after it was over, I purchased the book, the mailbox file or whatever it's called. Anyway, fascinating read, but it was, I think, in a way, a bit discouraging. And it just means our work is really cut out for us because the unethical behavior seems in some ways very ingrained in Hawaii.
Okay. You can
Thank
probably give us some advice as we move on each time based upon what you've learned. Thank you. Any questions? Okay, item number 5, discussion on oversight of judicial branch. Robert, you want to tell them where we are in regards to our meetings with the judiciary and what we hopefully plan to do or not do?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Chair. As you may recall, we've been having meetings with judiciary talking about just generally speaking, ethics issues, particularly in the context of the U.S. Supreme Court and whether or not Hawaii needs any addressing of its ethics rules with regards to judiciary, the judicial branch in specific. And I think based on sort of the feedback they received from us, they've pledged to essentially do a rule revision. We've posted, and again, I apologize. It feels like the link doesn't work perfectly on what is posted, so we will resend that out next month as well. But it's basically available at the judiciary's website, and they have a specific page for any proposed rules. And they basically pledge to notify us when a revised rule addressing ethics is posted. That will be out for public comment. And again, we're just making sure that public's aware so they can monitor it as well. And it'll give us an opportunity, along with the public, to submit any comments that we have about what the rule revisions are.
Let me go back in regards to how this all started. Actually, I think this is one of my initiatives. And I was a little concerned about the judiciary because they're not covered under our ethics code. And then, of course, with all the fervors that are happening in regards to the United States Supreme Court, they're really cracking down over there. And I thought, let's take a review of our judiciary. Right now, the judiciary, correct me if I'm wrong, Robert, is only under the scrutiny of the judicial conduct, which is going to be a group or a committee appointed by the Supreme Court justice to oversee the judicial conduct of the judiciary. It has nothing to do with our ethics commission and what, our rules and laws. I think a lot of us, and I asked Robert and staff to do a little research, and I think all of you hopefully reviewed what was given to us in regards to what other jurisdictions are doing about the judiciary. And it seems like many of the jurisdictions have dual codes. One called the Judiciary Code or Judicial Code, which is followed like us lawyers, as we say. And they also follow in addition, the State Ethics Code. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the judiciary does or is going to do in regard to ethics. And then I'm going to ask the commission, what do you want to do? Because, do you want to put the judiciary under the purview of the State Ethics Commission? It's separate now. But keep that in mind. Have I missed something, Robert?
Just a mild clarification. All of the general employees of judiciary are subject to the ethics code and are under our jurisdiction. It is only judges and justices that are treated differently.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. I was talking about the judges. I don't care about the employees. I'm talking about the judges. They are The last time I looked, the judges were just like you and me, they're human beings and, so anyway, keep that in mind. I'm talking about the judges. Okay, any questions, commissioners? Comments? Okay. Item number 6, National Conference and State, Robert?
Thank you, Chair. As you may recall, this is primarily based on request from Commissioner Thielen, looking at restrictions that are applicable to state employees specific to campaign fundraising and involvement with contractors. We submitted a question at her request to the National Conference of State Legislators, NCSL, and CSL was quite friendly, and they sent what is attached as attachment 2, essentially a chart looking at what other states have done sort of in this regard. In reviewing them, we stated in our staff overview that a majority of the restrictions that other states have are things that we believe we already currently have. Again, there's maybe nothing specifically that we saw on point. New York was probably the closest, but nothing specifically in point to what the inquiry was. However, there's a number of maybe more express restrictions on the ability to leverage your influence or position in order to force a contractor to make a campaign contribution, prohibitions on asking potential contractors whether or not they've made campaign contributions or investigating into that. And again, I think it's our view that it'd be helpful to take some of those express prohibitions, which again, we believe already exist here, and potentially include those into our rules more expressly, which would give us the ability to point to it and sort of make sure there's no ambiguity or uncertainty. Again, nothing maybe specific to Commissioner Thielen's question, but maybe a bunch of good suggestions, things that we can incorporate.
Questions, comments? Commissioner Thielen, yes.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Robert. What I'd like to do is ask if we as a commission could ask our staff to look at 2 particular states. One is Ohio, and that's in our materials, and the other is Kentucky. What they deal with in their ethics provisions is directly focused on the executive branch employees. And they're saying no employee in the executive branch can solicit or receive any contribution for any candidate for public office. So can solicit kind of takes place in that brown bag event where the deputy director of transportation facilitated that event. Kentucky is same thing, executive branch. They're both saying, yes, you can vote, but if you choose to work in the executive branch, then you cannot, as an employee, solicit or take any part in soliciting any contribution for any political campaign. It's very broad. That's the Kentucky one. And I was wondering if staff could take a look at all of those 2 states and those 2 existing statutes and come up with a bill for us to introduce in this coming session. Because I think our rules are fine, but I don't think our rules are as specific as this. And I see that both Kentucky and Ohio chose to put it in the statute, not just in rules, implementing other provisions that they have. So aimed at the executive branch. And if you choose to work there, then you do not participate in any campaigns or solicitation for funds. And then the basic simple language that it would be illegal for anyone involved in awarding or administering state contracts to be involved in political fundraising. So it may be working off of that simple sentence to, and again, applying it to the executive branch.
Okay. Yeah, comments from the other commissioners, Commissioner Hall, Commissioner Tobias? Yes, Commissioner Tobias.
I have one question for Commissioner Thielen, and it has to do with fundraising, and I'm not sure if they are in that branch, how would they gain monies for their running of office, if you will? I'm not clear on what you're asking, because you're saying, yes, they cannot solicit funds and they can't do like the brown bag thing where he was there. And I agree with that. But bottom line is, what are we saying to them, that they can no longer raise funds, or what?
Not if you're an employee in the executive.
Okay.
Not if you're an employee.
Okay.
This is not speaking to the elected executive branch officials. It's talking to the employees.
Just the employee. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Hong, any comments?
I would defer it, to the staff to take a look at this issue and come up with recommendations.
Okay. I got a question. I don't know if it's related, but Robert, do we have anything comparable to the Federal Hatch Act in the state?
So I think
you maybe explain what the Hatch Act is, if you know. I'm sure you do.
Sure. So the Hatch Act limits political activity on the federal level among specific types of employees, specifically, generally speaking, looking at folks involved in like criminal enforcement, with the idea that those types of employees should be above sort of the political fray, that they are, statutorily required. And so it's sort of a narrow, again, there's different restrictions within the Hatch Act. The most severe are on sort of a narrow class of employees. And then there's sort of light restrictions sort of against everybody. Essentially, can you do political organizing on federal property, et cetera? The state has some similar statutes specific to both the election board and the ethics commission specifically, and it picks up some of the same language as the Hatch Act about what can or can't be done as far as political organizing. And so I think this is, essentially what Commissioner Thielen's proposing. Again, the Kentucky law, haven't looked in great depth, but it does specifically talk about classified service. And, there are definitely restrictions in both Kentucky and, as Commissioner Thielen notes, in Ohio. I think the primary concern I'd have is that there would be constitutional overview. Yeah, it's to the extent that, participation in political organizing, political campaigning is likely to be considered, a constitutional right, and that any restriction is going to have to be narrowly tailored to sort of what the prohibition is going to be on. Drafting such a bill is not going to be easy. There are Hawaii's procurement process is heavily decentralized. So trying to, again, I think past conversations, Commissioner Thielen has not necessarily wanted to try to capture somebody who works at a, say, school procuring, blackboards or something, relatively small, trying to identify who would be captured by this and who would not, or are we simply going to apply it to, all 59,000 employees or so, that state employees. So again, trying to draft something that maybe will pass constitutional muster, and is, not, is achieving what we want it to achieve is going to be a bit of a challenge. I also kind of have some apprehension of, we have a very general fair treatment law that was deliberately written generally to kind of give the Ethics Commission discretion. Again, if you look at the history, the legislature wanted to give us the ability to not have a really bright line rule that prohibited the state from hiring employees based on an overly strict interpretation. So we are given kind of greater flexibility. If we start getting very specific, like this type of statute, then we potentially have to pick up a lot more within our fair treatment and make sure that we are really capturing all the different prohibitions, so that someone doesn't argue, well, you included one, but not the other. So therefore there must have been an intentionality to that. So it is sort of a reconsideration of how we do fair treatment, I think, in a way that, we haven't done before.
Why
Chair.
don't we do? Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Thielen.
Thank you, Chair. Possibly, Robert in the office could reach out to National Conference of State Legislatures that provided us this information and ask if the Ohio statute or the Kentucky statute have been challenged in court. And obviously, if they have, they've been upheld because these laws are on the books and they haven't been struck. So I think we don't have to reinvent anything. I think we can look at how we can just narrow and pull out those provisions in the Ohio and the Kentucky law and then move ahead with it and then find out from NCSL, have they been challenged in court? Because if they have, they've obviously been ruled viable. Okay.
Let me go ahead.
I think the staff have previously indicated that addressing the pay to play, we think probably the best way is simply to prohibit contractors that have a government contract from making campaign contributions. And we've seen public statements from the chairs of both judiciary committees that I think that there's an interest in passing that. That's in some ways the easiest way to enforce because you can clearly see it's a government contractor and they did or did not make a campaign contribution. So, I think the preference would be is to focus on that. To put the prohibition on state employees would be sort of catching the other end of it, but it'd be a lot harder to A, enforce, and B, it is going to be a task to do. I'm just not sure it's going to be as effective. But if the commission wants to move in that direction, certainly we will do it. And, we will make our best case for it as we can.
Why don't we do this, Robert, pursuant to Commissioner Thielen's initiative? Why don't you see what you come up with based upon what was said by Commissioner Thielen? I have a question in regards to the same issue. I noticed that you did a staff overview, and that's on page number 26. And it says state employees and legislators shall not use official authority to compel or induce political contributions. I'm surprised it didn't say also or engage in, because when I was in the military, because of the Hatch Act, I couldn't even put a campaign sticker on my car. Now, my question is, what if the governor goes and puts a sticker and says, I endorse Joe Blow for state senate? Is that prohibited? That's a question mark. Okay. So where is it that we draw a line saying the state executive branch says you cannot engage in political, well, how would you say, compel, induce political contributions? I'll leave that as a rhetorical question. You see where I'm coming from, right?
So again, compel or induce would be you don't get this contract unless you make a contribution to the candidate of my choice, right? Now that would be a plain fair treatment violation, and we believe it's already prohibited as of now. The difference between somebody who's driving into work who has a bumper sticker on their private car going into work, plainly, we're not saying that there's any prohibition on that. And I really strongly suspect we would have First Amendment challenges if we were to try to restrict that. With regards to having a sign in their state office, elect so-and-so, yeah, I mean, there are certainly, that would be, if it was very clear, again, our fair treatment would already address that. And I think what we're proposing to do is put some more express language into our rules to make sure that that type of behavior, which we already believe is a prohibition, prohibited, is more expressly clear. I think what Commissioner Thielen is proposing is a, sort of we don't currently have that restriction. It would basically be prohibiting anyone who is involved in procurement from being involved in political fundraising. So, for example, myself, Caroline, I would estimate probably in a magnitude of about 10,000 state employees would now no longer be able to be involved in any political fundraising. And, that is a bigger step. Currently, it's pretty expected. For example, cabinet appointees are usually pretty involved in a governor's political campaign. And here we'd be saying they cannot do that if they are also a state employee. Again, it's a good discussion, and I think it's a policy matter. There's probably good reasons to say that should happen. But it is a big step, and I just want to make sure that the commission's kind of aware of what it's looking to do.
Chair?
You have the last say, and then I want to put it on the agenda for the next meeting, Robert. See what you come back with. Commissioner Thielen?
Chair, yeah, it's really very straightforward. If the staff contacts NCSL or directly the states, Ohio and Kentucky, how broad is it and how does it work? I mean, we don't have to go and reinvent the wheel. Ohio is an amazingly diverse and wonderful state. I think it's the birthplace of several of our presidents. Go there, talk with them. How broad is it? Is it as scary as Robert discloses, or is it much more narrow? And I would think it would be a very well drafted and a well enforced law on the books that's been upheld. So let's look at that and get staff to get back to us with that information. I really want to go after the employees and tell them that was wrong. That was unethical what you did, but we don't have the law on the books yet to say to that deputy director, retired now, that was wrong. You shouldn't have held a brown bag event.
Okay, any of the comments from the commissioners first? Commissioner Tobias, anything else? Commissioner
No, I'd just like to see what the staff comes back with before I say anything else.
Oh yeah, sure. That's our direction to them. Commissioner Hong, anything else?
No other comments.
Okay. Robert, I guess you got your work cut out for you and your staff. So we'll put it on the agenda the next meeting, see what you could come back with. Anything else, Commissioner Thielen?
That's it. Thank you. Just be sure they reach out to Ohio and Kentucky and the NCSL. Don't try to do it within a vacuum here in Hawaii. Let's go to where it's been operating.
I hear that, Commissioner Thielen, and we're happy to reach out and happy to look into it. I think there are challenges, obviously, with the direction, and I think they can be addressed and they can be articulated. The maybe broader concern I have is that Kentucky and Ohio have very elaborate, lengthy statutes on ethics with a lot of specific pinpoints. Our statutes tend to be very general, and that we've picked it up in our rules. If we start including very specific portions into the statute, there becomes a implicit, because you didn't include other specifics later, that those were intended, deliberately omitted. So maybe my concern is a bit more of not just that we're inserting this one prohibition into our ethics code. Do we now have to pick up all the stuff that's in our rules and start reincorporating that in the statute? And is that going to be challenging to do in of itself? So again, when you start being really specific in the statute with specific prohibitions, it potentially, means that we may have to pick that up elsewhere. So it's maybe just a kind of a thoughtful approach. Do we have to sort of re-examine the whole ethics code in addition to it? There's reason to say that's not true, and I really recognize it. But just trying to flag why maybe in some ways we're different than Ohio and Kentucky, and that this is a part of a very complicated code. That do we have to start picking up more of that as well?
Well, again, when you do your research, come on back, and I'm going to ask, what do you recommend after your research, and give us some guidance, Robert, based upon Commissioner Thielen's concern. Okay. Can we move on? Item number 7, administrative rules. Is that right?
Correct.
All right.
So Chair, respectfully, the staff, based on general rules are intended to be updated from time to time as issues arise. Two, we've had a number of legislative updates over the past 2 years, and so it's pretty clear we're going to have to revise the rules to reflect what those statutory changes are. The staff have started engaging in revising the rules, and what we'd like to do is give you those drafts more from a directionality perspective. So we're not looking for you to authorize or approve this draft specifically. It's an opportunity to talk through, see if there's any concerns or the directionality wise. We would still need to get the Attorney General's approval. You typically in the past have asked LRB to take a look as well. We'd have to go out to public hearing, get public comment, reflect those public comments, and then at that stage come back to the commission for approval. So long-winded way of saying you're probably going to see this, several times before it is final. And so this maybe isn't the moment to do precise wordsmithing, but more just directionally, this looks like it's going in a good direction or not. We've started with chapters 1 through 3. I don't think there's anything necessarily overly contentious in chapters 1 through 3. And our intent is probably to try to bring 3 chapters every meeting from now on until we've gone through all the proposed revisions. So with your permission, if you don't mind, I'm just going to briefly summarize what the revisions are in each chapter and then see if there's any questions. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, any objections? Yeah, none. Go ahead.
Okay. So chapter 1 is sort of our general catch-all statute or chapter. And what we are proposing there is to strike a specific language about the position of the associate director. Again, recent staffing changes, we've broken that responsibility sort of into compliance and enforcement sections.
Robert, is this in our, I'm sorry, is this in our binders?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
So if you take a look at page 43, yeah, that's where it starts.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
So again, just giving us greater flexibility by removing the specific staff positions in chapter 1. Looking at chapter 2, it gives greater discretion on the destruction of financial disclosures. One sec, let me get to it. It also is giving us some additional specific language regarding the service of subpoenas and how to pursue enforcement of those subpoenas. Chapter 3 has probably got the most substantive revisions, and again, hopefully not terribly controversial. It is including definitions of what is a blind trust to the extent that somebody is moving their assets into a blind trust and is essentially saying, I no longer need to report those assets on my financial disclosure because they are in a blind trust. What does that mean? We're also trying to define what is a mutual fund or a publicly traded mutual fund, which currently is an exception to the reporting requirement. You don't have to report individual movement on that mutual fund, but you just basically generally reference the fund itself. And so we've had some issues with what is a mutual fund. And so here, therefore, we're trying to actually create a precise definition. In addition, we have a new fine process for people who fail to file their financial disclosures. We are trying to basically codify sort of what the statutory change is into the rules as well. I think that sort of is a general description of all the changes. Are there any questions or?
What is it that you need us to do right now? Because I noticed in the very preface, you said that no approval is necessary at this stage. You want us to review all these again? And then you come up with a whole, whatever it is you're going to come up with, and we approve or disapprove?
You will definitely have an opportunity at a later date to approve or disapprove sort of the, both probably a draft before we go to public hearing and then a draft after we've gone through public hearing and received public comments. So there will be plenty of opportunities for the commission to approve the final language. I think the intent then is this is sort of a check-in, if there's any concerns or directionally. Again, nothing here I think really is probably going to raise an eyebrow. Some of the later chapters we're going to consider in future months. Some of the proposals around gifts, some of the nepotism rules may require greater discussion. So again, we sort of don't want to go through the whole public hearing process, for example, without sort of, knowing the commission is sort of comfortable with letting a broader discussion happen, in the direction we're going.
Well, let me say that for me, I hate to go through this whole thing, but I'll rely a lot on what your staff comes up with in recommendations. And if there are any red flags, definitely let us know that we can really concentrate on them. But, the dot the I's and cross the T's, I'm not too concerned with. So, commissioners, any questions, any comments? Is my conclusion correct? I mean, we just we'll follow along in regards, but there's no action we're going to take right now. Is that correct?
Correct. No action requested at this stage.
Any questions or comments from the commissioners?
I think just reading it is going to be enough to try to understand where they're going, if that's possible.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, Robert, that's it. We'll just
thank you very much.
We'll follow along with the staff, the staff review and see if there are any real red flags that we should take action on or not take action on. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I have nothing else. Oh my gosh. Akana.
No update, Chair.
I hate to ask this question. What's the anticipated timeline? When is the next? I don't know what to call it.
My crystal ball is no better than yours. However, typically the Supreme Court is, much faster with regards to certs. And so, again, a decision can come out any time now, or it may be a couple months, more. We don't know.
So definitely before my tenure is over, right?
I would anticipate that, yes. I would anticipate early next year is probably, right around when it will get a decision.
Okay. I think Ray Gralty and I will be very happy to see what the outcome is. That's the outcome. Any questions, commissioners? Any comments? I think that's all I have. All we have on the agenda on Sunshine. Is that correct, Robert?
That's correct.
Okay. If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Moved.
Second.
3 of us. Not that we want to adjourn, mind you.
Ladies, I'm gonna let the gentleman. Okay. Moved by Commissioner Hall, seconded by Commissioner Thielen. I see from top to right. Any discussion? Roll call.
Starting with Vice Chair Tobias.
Aye.
Commissioner Hong.
Aye.
Commissioner Thielen.
Aye.
Chair.
And chair votes aye. The time is now 9:50. Should we take a 10-minute break?